Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished and well known food entrepreneur from Mumbai, India, Mr. Mohammed Bhol. Mohammed, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Mohammed is the Chief Executive Officer and co founder of the House of Biryan. So, Mohammed, before we start talking about biryani, which is a food that I love and I'm sure all our viewers and listeners love as well, tell me a little bit about your own journey and your inspiration to start House of Biryan and why biryan and not biryani.
So I'll quickly give you my background, right? I'm a trained chef. I have done my culinary education, pretty boilerplate chef course from Taj Aurangabad. And then I got lucky. I had the opportunity of working with a chef called Gordon Ramsay in London.
Mm,
So that's where I learned my craft. I also did my higher education. I completed my postgrad and master's in hospitality and finance. Came back. Uh, my family business happens to be biryani. So I'm a
mm,
Bori Muslim. My grandfather started a traditional Bori biryani business back in 1958.
mm,
So my entire family is still in it,
wow,
right? All my
mm,
uncles, my cousins, all of them.
mm,
It's just that third day in the family business, I was told, hey, you're not gonna cut it over here. So
mm,
that's when I kind of, took my own path. Worked with chains like Le Pain Quotidien, been instrumental in launching Mumbai's first French restaurant.
mm,
Me and my co-founder in this venture, Mikhail, we ran Mumbai's premier steakhouse back in the day, called 212 Bar and Grill. So
mm,
we've had a bunch of hospitality slash restaurant operating experience.
mm,
I think the idea was that, you have a Subway, you have a McDonald's, you have a Burger King.
mm.
Why is somebody not taken the same playbook and done this with biryani? So
Correct.
that was the genesis at which we, started a brand called Charcoal Eats back in 2015.
Mm,
We were the one who technically founded it, and we exited that, got bought out 7 years later.
mm.
And as far House of Biryan is concerned, so why it's a biryani and not biryani? Honestly, go try and registering a biryani
Okay.
brand name, and you will see how difficult it is.
Okay. That's
Um,
as simple as that.
it's as simple as
Okay.
that to start with.
Oh.
And the funny thing is when we started, the lawyer said don't write Biryan, write Beryan.
Mm,
But what we didn't foresee is people could not spell that. So there was no relevance building on the online platform, so we had to
mm,
change it to Biryan.
mm,
But now, it's all happened so organically, right? I mean,
mm,
now when you talk about it with the new branding and all of that, you can either sound intelligent or you can just honestly, humbly say, listen, we were just directed. Consumers call us HOB. So
mm.
now we are rebranding the entire exercise from House of Biryan to HOB.
How fascinating. And I kept wondering, and when I was preparing for my conversation, I was looking for the meaning of biryani. I thought maybe it is some word from some part of the world. But thank you for telling me this. And the very interesting linkage you just shared with me. You did your chef training from Taj Aurangabad. And in
Yeah.
1979, which was many, 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 many years ago, I was ITC's first financial controller in Rama International. So
Wow.
you and I have both been in adjoining hotels. Wonderful.
Yes.
So, Mohammed, my next question is, and I'm sure you've been asked this many, many times, what are the origins of biryani and how did it or where did it come from to India?
So, I think it has Persian origins and probably biryani. Uh, what my philosophy and my version is that it was more a dish that was born of convenience. So wars used to take place, and they had to probably feed the soldiers, give them nourishment. So it was a one pot meal. It had carbs, it has protein, it has everything that you'd want. And probably when that influence came down in India, percolated. India being India and India being, so fragmented with so many different communities, caste, religion. So everybody kind of took their own inspiration and slant of what it means to them. And I'm so glad you asked this question because let me tell you in a modern day how this is relevant, right?
Mm,
And for us, this is something for me personally,
mm,
it's so challenging because biryani is something that is in my DNA, safe to say.
mm,
But it's something. This is my third rodeo, so I've been a part of biryani startup. I say startup circus like for the last
yeah.
decade
Mm,
plus,
mm,
and it's so interesting because you take a burger and a pizza, you take the same product anywhere in India and you can probably sell it. But when it comes to biryani, it's very different. You
mm,
can't just cut, copy, paste the same recipe or the product and expect success,
correct.
which is why you don't see national chains. You see chains which do really well in certain micro markets
Hmm.
because they adapt to the eating style or the product market fit is very strongly in that micro market. But it is not, like a Paradise will do really well probably down south. But I don't think they'll get the same level of success with the same products if they
Right.
come probably to Bombay, for example.
So I guess all biryani brands have adapted to local flavors as
Yeah.
well, which is a great segue to my next question, is what goes into making a great biryani, and how is the HOB's biryani different from so many other brands in the market?
So typically, a biryani has three components, right? Uh, l- let's talk about a traditional biryani. A
Mm,
traditional biryani that my grandfather used to make in a copper handi.
mm,
It will basically have your dahi masala, which will have spices. It will have a lot of fried onions, freshly fried onions. It will have your meat. That thing will be marinated with curd, and then it is layered with half cooked rice, dollops of saffron, brown onions, and then ghee on top, and the whole handi is shut. So then what happens is when you cook it with coal slowly, there's like a mini water cycle that happens, right?
correct.
So the flavor from the meat is kind of going in the rice. It's hitting the bottom of the lid, becoming water, coming back on the rice, and that's how the whole flavor and all
Mm,
happens, right?
mm,
What we've done very well at HOB is we've kind of understood that look, you know what? If you want success, you
mm,
cannot shortcut the product.
right.
And the other thing, what we've realized is that, look, you know, this is my philosophy and it's worked really well for us. And it's very contrarian. Ashutosh, probably I think either you love it or hate it. But my thing is that, look, the reason why we don't have a McDonald-esque brand worldwide with
Mm,
Indian food is because I think we've shot ourselves in the foot.
hmm.
We've really overplayed our hand with this whole authenticity and history and all of that. I
Correct.
think what we need to understand is that the younger generation doesn't care.
Absolutely.
They want great taste, which is like the most important priority.
Mm,
Okay. They want their biryani to be customized, which is what we are offering. We're the only biryani brand that allows you to make your own biryani. And it is so interesting because you see the combinations, permeations people do, right? Somebody's mixing chicken with paneer and jackfruit with lamb. And this was our thesis that biryani is a very static category.
mm,
The younger generation don't like to be told ki the product is like this and you have to consume it like that. So
mm,
they want to experiment. Uh, and what we have done is we basically give you a platform where you can create your own biryani. Now
mm,
there are two things this does for us, right? One, it kind of takes the heat off our biryanis,
mm,
and I'll tell you why. Because our communication is we are not authentic, and
mhm,
and this might again be very contrarian,
mm,
but the other thing is, I am not. We are not challenging any connoisseurs in
correct.
biryani
Mm,
to say that we are the most authentic biryani.
yeah.
What we promise is we'll give you the most tastiest biryani.
Yeah.
It'll have a lot of flavor.
Mm,
You customize it the way you want. And the best part is majority of our orders are served within 35 minutes. And
wow.
that's a huge selling point.
Absolutely.
So as long as you can give consistency, great taste, predictability, and quickly in the age of Q-commerce where people feel 15 minutes also is late,
Mm,
I think you kind of hit the spot.
amazing. Are you in Delhi and Gurgaon?
Yes, we are.
Right.
We have ten kitchens in Delhi.
So I'm not going to make a, I'm going to order this for dinner tonight. But moving on, Mohammed, can you also talk to me about the cultural significance of biryani? Indian households, because every home also makes their own biryani and everyone has their own, as you said, unique
Right.
flavors.
So let me talk to you very practically about two styles of biryani cooking,
Mm,
right? So say for example, let's talk about the Muslim biryani, the Bori biryani,
yeah.
right? And which I just explained to you.
Mm,
It's heavily laden with curd, which is mixed with meat, brown onions,
mm,
then your rice is half cooked, it's done. Now, if you go down south,
mm,
let's talk about a very well-known brand called Dindigul Thalakapati, right?
mm,
They're masters at what they do. They've really aced the market. Uh, Now, the kind of biryani they make there
mm,
is very different.
mm,
It has a lot of pepper. Two, the rice is completely different. We use a basmati rice here. They use like a small short grain rice. Three, the style of cooking also is Ashutosh very interesting,
mhm,
because what they do is they probably make like a broth with the stock, the bones of either lamb or chicken.
mm,
And then in that broth, they throw the rice, and the rice absorbs the flavor of the broth, and that's a
mm.
biryani for them.
Wow.
Whereas if the same thing we do it with
Mm,
basmati rice, it's called a yakni. So
mm,
what we call a yakni pulao is a biryani for them. And the
mm,
styles of biryani is very different,
mm,
but both are biryani in their own right.
mm.
So it's I think a lot to do with your culture also has a lot to like pepper. Pepper is something they index on too much, so it's very high
Mm,
in recipe if you go down south, especially Kerala.
mm.
So depending on your region, depending on the influence, depending on what rice works over there, what ingredients work over there, you know, it influences the way and people prepare and eat their biryani.
Very interesting. Moving on now, I wanted to ask you about the global appeal of Indian biryani because I was reading an article, and because whenever I've traveled overseas, um, the largest selling Indian food is butter chicken, dal, and roti. What happens to amazing products like biryani? And do you see this demand growing across the world?
So, like I told you earlier, right?
Hmm.
I think if we want to make Indian food popular,
Hmm.
we need to get off our high horse of authenticity.
Correct.
And Ashutosh, one thing. So I'll tell you a reflection from my previous startup that I did. Like the most stupidest thing that I did,
Hmm.
right? Like if we wanted to do a Hyderabadi biryani, we would actually call down a chef from Hyderabad,
Hmm.
nail down the recipe, do the product, and then
Hmm.
fill the room with connoisseurs of
Correct.
biryani
Correct.
to basically validate whether the product is right. Now, in plain sight, that would be logical thinking, right? Hey,
Hmm.
if you want a great Hyderabadi biryani, these are the steps you need to
Correct.
take.
Hmm.
But it was the most stupidest thing to do. And I take
Hmm.
full ownership. Reason being is because if you want to create mass, if you want
Hmm.
to get product market fit at mass scale, you cannot be authentic.
Hmm.
And that's my thesis. Authenticity and scale do not go hand in hand.
Hmm.
So the first thing, HOB is planning on doing is in the next 90 days, we are launching Dubai.
Hmm.
And I think that will be a great litmus test for our philosophy and our thesis.
Hmm.
And our products are not indexing too much on chili, too much on garam masala, too much on, really strong flavors, really
Hmm.
pungent flavors. But think of if biryani has to become popular, think
Hmm.
of using biryani as a moat, but think globally more like chicken and rice. So chicken and rice,
Hmm.
you know, and biryani is used as a segue rather
Hmm.
than, creating those pearls of authenticity,
Hmm.
which not every nationality will accept because
Correct.
the palate profile that people have, especially abroad, is very sensitive.
Hmm.
And that is why butter chicken works really well because it's mild flavors, very creamy, cuts through all the masalas.
Hmm.
Why do certain dishes work and certain don't? And
Hmm.
that's the reason.
Very interesting. A few minutes back, you were also talking to me about why there are no chains because of differences in flavors and differences in the way people make biryani, and yet you are growing nationally. What is the process you follow to ensure consistency in your quality and taste?
So, firstly, I think what we've realized is, you know, we should appreciate. the whole consumer behavior, brands like Swiggy and Zomato have
Mm.
changed when they launched in 2016.
Right.
Why I say that is because 2016, 2015 to 2017 was a time where kind of all any moat a food brand would have, a delivery food brand would have, was taken away
Mm.
because anyone could probably start a restaurant or a kitchen.
Right.
Now, what that also led to is that led to products being super ultra processed,
Hmm.
which means that in the name of scale, people started using a lot of ultra processed components to assemble the food.
Mm.
Consumers got smarter. They said, listen, scale is your problem.
Mm.
We are giving you top dollar, you give us a top product.
Mm.
So, one of the philosophies that we have in HOB, and the reason why we exited the last business also in that matter was that we want to be true to the core, which is
Right.
the food.
Mm.
How we do that with biryani is you have to understand 60% of the biryani is rice.
Mm.
Uh, we do fresh dum of every batch at HOB. And
Mm.
I think that's a secret sauce.
Amazing.
Then you have your spice mixes and proteins and all of that,
Mm.
which you kind of probably, you can bring them together. But the dum is fresh. And I think that is our X factor. That is the difference that is made to our brand.
Thank you for sharing this. And Mohammed, what role does technology play in your operations at HOB?
So, think of what Chipotle did to Mexican food,
Yeah.
right? Uh, Pre-Chipotle era, you had either high-end Mexican or you had the local taco shops. What
Mm.
Chipotle did is probably kind of standardize all the offerings
Yeah.
by bringing all the different components and using science, replacing the art with science,
Mm.
where it's a lettuce or a salsa or an avocado, and really going deep and backward into, okay, how do I ensure that I get the freshest produce in my store?
Mm.
So think of us doing something very similar, but deconstructing a biryani and reconstructing at the store.
Mm.
And that is allowed by ensuring that there is no dilution on the components when
Mm.
we deconstruct the product. So the sauces, the protein, the dum that happens is again with a machine that is fully automatic.
Mm.
We've created a spice mix with the help of a company that is the backbone on mixes to Haldirams and Frito-Lays.
Mm.
So the idea is that, okay, how do I get consistency by removing art, replacing it with science,
Mm.
but also doing it in a manner that when it is reconstructed, the product is amazing.
Very
So
interesting.
that's how we use technology in probably ensuring that there is no dilution on the components.
Mm. Well said. And you spoke to me about a Hyderabad biryani. You were mentioning to me about Kerala biryani. What are some of the regional variations that have inspired some of your recipes?
So egg and aloo,
Hmm.
very Kolkata,
Yeah.
right? Uh, egg, sorry, aloo and lamb, very, very Bori,
Hmm.
for that matter.
Mm.
Uh, then you have an Avdi, which is your Lucknowi. Also, see, if you go on a menu, right, you will probably find, okay, you know what, there is a slight dichotomy between what I'm saying and what's there.
Mm.
But what you have to understand is that when we use words like Avdi, Hyderabadi, Kolkata on the
Mm.
menu, which you see,
Mm.
they're less for me and more for the algorithm because that's what people type when they search. That's the honest truth,
Correct.
right? Now, if you talk about inspiration from different kinds of biryanis, I
Mm.
think the kind of spices that are used, the sauces that we came up with, the masalas that used as a base, which is one of the components of biryani,
Mm.
vary from region to region.
Mm.
A Lucknowi's Avdi is very different from the Hyderabadi. And
Mm.
Ashutosh, actually, let me share a very interesting tidbit with you, right?
Mhm.
Our highest selling product is not a biryani.
Mhm.
It
Okay.
is it is a product called kepsa. And kepsa traditionally
Mm.
is what similar to what a yakni is for the but comes from Middle East
Mhm.
with very mild spices. But you know what we've done? My co-founder Mikhail, he's taken 50%, a tikka masala, mixed it with Szechuan sauce. It's like Indo fusion.
Mm.
It's it's nothing in terms of authenticity, right? But it's lip smacking yummy.
Wow.
And our highest selling product is not a biryani, it's a kepsa.
Amazing. Amazing. And then there's this
Which
whole,
which
sorry,
which
go ahead.
kind of tells you, right? Which
Uh,
kind of tells you that people will reward you if
mm,
you get the taste
correct.
factor right. And I
Absolutely.
think if the for us that taste factor and ensuring that consistency in the taste factor is the most
Very,
important thing.
very well said. And yet, Mohammed, there is the other very interesting segment of biryani, which is the vegetarian options as well. Um, what is different between the vegetarian options, which are, and very often people say, oh, vegetarian biryani is actually not a biryani, it's a pulao. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
So, I we take our vegetarian biryanis extremely seriously, all
Mm,
right? We don't cut corners. The same sauces that we use for maybe a chicken or a lamb is also used for a veg.
mm,
In fact, Mikhail, my co-founder who manages food, he's done some very interesting innovations,
mm,
right? We've got exotic veg, which is broccoli and zucchini. Then he's also created a great biryani. Like if you're ordering, you should order a jackfruit biryani.
mhm,
You will not miss meat. A lot of my friends who eat our biryani and certain days they are veg and they
mm,
order
mm,
and they message me and or call me and they say, "Oh, your veg biryanis are even more amazing."
mm,
And my first reaction is, I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult, but I'll take
mm.
it.
Yeah.
So we've at HOB we've really worked hard to create those components, be it
Mm,
paneer, be it jackfruit, be it exotic veg, be it
mm,
your Indian veg, and we've kind of given it the same respect that
mm.
you would give a lamb and chicken biryani, if I may say.
Well said. So, Mohammed, I have time for one more question, and I want to talk to you about your vision for expansion. And you just mentioned you're opening Dubai in a few months' time. What steps are you taking to make biryani much more acceptable or approachable to an international audience? And how do you think an Indian cuisine would appeal to a global audience who are not yet familiar with it?
Got it. So look, Ashutosh, the format in which you serve and the consumer journey, from the time the consumer starts interacting with you is very
Mm,
important.
mm,
Just think of, uh, okay, ask yourself what would a biryani store of a future look like,
mhm,
right? So typically you will say, okay, biryani, it needs to be layered, it needs to be dum, all of that. Think of a Subway kind of a model or a
mm,
Chipotle model where
mm,
you can go to the counter. You pick what toppings you want. You
mm,
pick the various sauces you want. You choose your spice level. The guy is doing it in front of you.
mm,
He's layering the rice in front of you.
mm,
And then there is a quick dum that is happening by that pot or that, box going on a conveyor belt. And in 2.5 minutes, you get like a freshly done biryani.
mm,
I think it needs to be multi-sensorial. People need to see a touch feel. I think that is very important because if you see Indian cuisine, majority of it is done behind a glass wall
correct.
or a shut doors.
Mm,
I think that openness is very important because people want to see, and somebody's got to take that punt, right, by saying ki let me just open it up. I mean, either people will react by saying, "Oh, it's so unauthentic," but my sense is that if you can make it interactive, if you can make it multi-sensorial, and if you can give a great tasty product within like 2.5, 3 minutes,
mm.
I think that's something to build over.
Well said. Well said. And on that note, Mohammed, and your last few remarks of taking it global, I sincerely hope every time I'm outside India, I will start to see House of Biryan because I think though some people are experimenting with a lot, still needs to be done when it comes to Indian cuisine, which and take it away from the big Taj Mahal sitting there and the red walls and loud music and so on. But thank you so much for speaking to me about House of Biryan, about your own journey. I think I learned many, many new things from you about biryani today. As I mentioned, I'm going to place an order on it today and test it out. But thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you. As far we going global is concerned, Ashutosh, I just want to end this podcast by
Mm,
just saying one thing. Uh, this is my grandfather's legacy.
mm,
There is history.
yeah.
He started with
Mm,
nothing, and built quite a large empire and a
absolutely.
large family.
Hmm.
So the least I can do is take the baton forward.
Absolutely.
So
And good luck with that. Thank you again.
thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.